Yo guys, what is up? This is Abir. I'm a philosopher in California, and today I want to talk to you about karma and the now. So, I think it's been pretty important for me to keep making these YouTube videos, even though I have a lot on my plate. Doing a lot of my own research into world history and kind of deep psychological, cycles. I'm trying out a new format, just kind of a simpler, more direct, just presentation of ideas. And my wish is really that these ideas are helpful to you wherever you are on your journey. If you're coming back, thanks. And if you're new here on this channel, I really focus on taking these kind of deeper ideas coming from a lot of different traditions and making them helpful or usable in a more everyday contemporary sense. So I want to talk about karma and the now, because this idea of karma can seem very abstract. Like, what is karma? What does that mean? This word gets kind of thrown around, like karma's a bitch, things like that. But over time, I've gotten a more material sense of what that is. So I'm going to say, like, karma is basically whatever is arising in one's present moment, right? So if I'm sitting here having a certain experience, whether that is some external force, it's an avalanche, it's a person, or it's internal, it's just arising within me, I'm going to say that those are both different versions of karma. They're really the same thing. They're really like whatever is happening in the moment, right? So just start with a very simple idea that karma is a kind of mechanical almost emergence of the present moment, whether that's something outside or something within me, right? So most of the times when these sorts of experiences come up, there's a immediate sort of response that we have, right? Let's say I get into a fight with my girlfriend, she says something that's negative to me, and immediately I have all these neurons in my brain, all these sort of patterns that have been created that I immediately respond with, right? Because as you know, neurons that fire together, wire together. And so there's the way to engage karma, which is very mechanical, right? Every time I'm presented with a certain situation, I react in the same way. Situation, reaction. And so karma has this feeling of being from the past and something that emerges over time and something that's repetitive. So if every time a certain situation happens, I react the same way, basically I'm probably going to get exactly the same thing, right? So freeing oneself from one's karma is this quality of having a sense of freedom in the moment, right? So that's the next idea, freedom in the moment. What does that mean? I'm going to turn to ideas related to Jiddu Krishnamurti as well as Buddhism. Krishnamurti is a philosopher, spiritual leader, great. Definitely check him out. And so freedom in the moment is this recognition that every moment is actually free of, like, there is nothing else other than what is here and now, right? And sometimes it's easier to say than it is to live, because there's such a strong perception of time passing, and Western society is very much geared towards this sense of time passing. But imagine that in this moment, like, there is nothing else but this moment. And so through the practice of something like meditation or Krishnamurti's dialogues or many other spiritual practices, one can have a sense of deepening into just this moment being here. There's nothing before, there's nothing after. Whatever's in the past is just like, it's a memory, but it's not even really. Who knows if that memory is totally accurate? And the future, nobody really knows what's around the veil of the present, right? So there's a complete sense of freedom in this moment, either through meditation or through some other spiritual practice. And so within this moment itself, you can have a experience of a complete choice and freedom. So let's say that normally this thing happens, I react this way. This thing happens, I react this way. This thing happens, and then I'm experiencing it. I'm experiencing my own karma, my own past moment, and maybe there's a collective karma. Like, maybe I didn't choose to be involved in some major mass world event. But I can still choose to have a detached sense of experiencing a moment without completely identifying myself with it, right? And so that creates a kind of freedom that's there. Now, I want to talk about another source of this karma, right? It can either be, if you believe in past lives, maybe it's coming from there. So it could be like, in your past life, you did something and now the ripples are coming to get you. Maybe that is one way to look at it. Another way is it's just an impersonal Newtonian billiard ball, random atoms like kind of bouncing off of each other that resulted in this moment. Like in Tokyo, some butterfly flapped its wings and I'm sitting here in California and now there's a tornado, right? So one can also have a Newtonian view on it. There's Stan Grof, is a psychiatrist, who's done a lot of deep work, one of the major pioneers of 20th century psychiatry. And he talks a lot about birth trauma. The trauma of being born itself, being something that remains embedded within our consciousness and something that we reenact again and again. So I'm just presenting these few different ideas to say karma itself can come from all these different lineages, take your pick, but it's just basically the sense that whatever is arising in the moment, whether it's out here or in here. Now, what can we replace? I'm going to go a step beyond somebody like Krishnamurti, who may say in the moment is a sort of emptiness. Even Buddhism would describe a kind of an emptiness of the moment. One can get very deep into what emptiness means. I'm not trying to minimize that concept, but I would like to say something I'm playing around with at the moment is more like bringing a very strong vision into the moment, right? So let's say I'm feeling very poor right now because I have a certain way that I've lived with my money habits in the past, and every time I dig into my pocket, it feels empty, and so I'm feeling very poor, which makes me maybe feel a bit low, which maybe makes me do something to sabotage myself, and then again I dig into my pocket and I feel low. So I'm finding, based on my experiences with NoFap, and in NoFap you give up pornography and you have to replace it. That's what many men find, is that you can't just give up something like pornography or even addiction. Addiction is another thing that I've had experience with, that I've spent time recovering from. So it's you can't just, if every day you eat a donut, you can't just stop doing that and expect yourself to be fine. You have to replace the donut with something else, working out, new interests, you're making your dreams come true, right? And so I'm going to say that karma is this thing that's emerging in the moment. Within that moment, you have a sense of freedom that you can bring by having a detached awareness, just seeing what is without totally identifying with it, just seeing it, just observing it. And what I'm playing around with is bringing in a sense of a vision, my most exciting vision of my life, to fill the moment with that instead, right? So if every time I have a fight with my neighbor, neighbor complains about the noise, I get angry, I turn up the volume, they complain about the noise, that's just a dead, unconscious, mechanical, karmic, continuation. Then let's say the neighbor responds, and instead of feeling so involved in the anger of the moment, I just see it as something that's happening. I don't necessarily think it's so consequential. It's just another thing that's emerging, and I can see the emptiness in it, the love of it, but I'm playing around with replacing that as I see my neighbor, right? Replacing this window pane of my experience with my vision of I love my neighbor. Me and my neighbor get along all the time. This is my favorite neighbor. Whatever that vision is, right? So in that case, when the neighbor knocks on the door, I may even say, hey, it's great to see you. Come in. Here is a cup of tea, right? So those are three elements I just wanted to share. Thanks for watching. If you like these kind of videos, please subscribe and give a like, share it. It really helps out the channel. I really want to keep making these, even though there's so much on my plate with the research that's going on. I look forward to sharing more about that over time. But thanks, and have an awesome day.